All right, so here we go. The first part of this presentation on organizational change. Okay? Organizational change is inevitable. You must have organizational change, otherwise you're never going to progress, right? So obviously, downsizing is a major trend that is necessitating organizational change. Eliminating middle level managers, shrinking the organizational structure. Downsizing is just the way it is. Okay, mergers and acquisitions will create a necessity for organizational change. What do you do with different? I have two different human resources. Now what? Okay, obviously globalization and outsourcing. I've heard some things like, even a car that's made in America, it's like there's like 200 times that the parts of a car will cross an international border during the production of a vehicle. And it's like, 200? Yeah, because, it's the metal might be made in Germany, right? The steel is made in Germany, and then it is shipped to Mexico to be turned into something, and then it's sent over here to add a component, and then it comes back to America. So it's quite a change in the way we do business. Okay? So even though organizational change is both necessary and inevitable, a lot of times individuals are afraid of organizational change. Will I lose my job? What's going to happen? Am I going to lose coworkers? The organization is like, look, we've got some inertia. We've got going. We're going to have to go back and rewrite, do another job analysis, to do job descriptions. There's all kinds of things that are preventing change. Okay? So organizational change really requires three things. A change agent, okay? And a change agent is something like customers no longer are desiring the product that you're producing, and you need to change what you're doing. That's a good change agent, okay? Who is the client? That is the corporation creating a product, okay? What is the intervention? I don't know. Change your production or something, okay? But there's always going to be these individuals, right? We already said there's this resistance to change going on, but there's going to be individuals who will intentionally sabotage efforts to change, all right? Something like that. So here's a beautiful visual representation of how organizational change might occur. And so there's going to be reasons that we need to change, forces for change, and forces against change, okay? And so what's going to happen is customers want new products. Yeah, that's a pretty big reason, okay? Or you need to improve how fast you can produce a product. Okay, you need to scale up the volume of the output. Maintenance costs are increasing because your equipment is old, and eventually you're going to be like, the cost of the new equipment is now worthwhile because maintaining the old equipment. Okay, so there's forces for change, but forces against change. Okay. People are afraid of the new technology. There are obviously going to be major costs involved, but as you can see in this particular model, there are 10 units of force for change and 8 units of force against change. In this case, the plan will occur, upgrade the factory with new equipment. Okay? Kurt Levine again, had this model for change where he said organizational change comes in 3 stages. One is unfreezing. That is, those forces that were against change are starting to be broken down. The system is open. Then moving is the actual act of changing. And then refreezing is to create a new level of equilibrium or a new organizational culture, a new organizational structure, a new employee handbook, whatever it might be. Okay? So an action model for organizational change looks a little different, but it's a cycle rather than a continuous line. It is a cycle. So you're going to perceive a problem and identify it. Customers want a new product. Okay, let me consult an organizational design expert. Okay, then we'll gather data. Okay, what is it that we are currently producing? How many units are we selling? What is my predictions of how they will sell next year? Okay, we're going to go to the client themselves, the corporation, and say, okay, we've gathered our data. This is what we've got. We're telling you the forces for change are, the forces against change are. Then you're going to take your action, and then the action is going to feed back, and we're going to gather data. How has this organizational change influenced our productivity? Let me tell my client what's going on.